it's time to introduce someone who I've always wanted to be present with me on my channel to do a lovely cricketing chat, and someone who I admired, played alongside, have bowled reasonably to him, and he's also smashed me around the path. Welcome on the show, AB de Villiers. How are you doing?
I'm good, Ash. It's good to see you. I think more often than not, you sort of contained me with the batting, but at least I got a hold of you a couple of times here and there.
Getting smashed by you isn't fun, AB. It's a lot of headache. I know a lot of bowlers that have had nightmares thinking of you going to bed, especially during the IPL. And yeah, one of those batters I've always enjoyed coming up against. But this is a journey both of us have embarked upon. YouTube, quite the fun element to our life post retirement. It's a very happy day for you, not so much for me. It's good to come across to collaborate, but very well done to South Africa on what a historic achievement. You've been on Indian tours before. What sets this South African team apart? What are your initial thoughts about it?
Yeah, thank you, Ash. It is quite an emotional win for the Proteas. I am absolutely speechless with their performance over the last few years, as a lot of people were calling out for them to go through a transitional phase of 5 to 10 years where they try and find their feet again after a lot of people or players retired, including myself, and but to name a few. And I actually spoke to Kagiso Rabada, and it came out of the horse's mouth when saying, you know what, we miss you guys, and it doesn't quite feel the same. That was a few years back, and I thought they're going to have to sort of find a bit of magic from somewhere to sort of just stay afloat over the next few years. But they surprised everyone under the captaincy of Temba Bavuma, Coach Shukri Conrad. They seem to have found something really special in the team. I don't think they're completely out of the woods, and we're not going to put our hands up and say they're the perfect cricket team, but they rely a lot on character and on self-belief, and that's sort of what drives the engine at the moment. And as you know, Ash, when you have confidence in the player next to you, and he's got confidence in the player next to him, and everyone believes in what you are trying to achieve as a team and the game plan, then incredible things can be achieved. And they are a prime example of that.
There have been some incredible South African teams that I have come up against. Some amazing individual players under Graham Smith. In fact, it was a great team. It was a team that was feared when they toured around the world. Couldn't quite go on to accomplish what this particular team has done. You spoke about character, and I dug deep to get some numbers out from the series, AB, and I found out something very interesting. I took a screen grab of how Tristan Stubbs has gotten out every single time in this Test series. That's not a defensive technique that I would be very proud of. That's not a defensive technique I would teach anyone against spin. But bloody hell, he's gone on and defended 400 balls in this Test series, and that tells you the character, right? And when I look at the Indian team, some of those I've shared the dressing room with, some of those are new. Um, Quite the contrary. The trust in defense. How critical is it when you travel to subcontinent, or for that matter, wherever you play in the world? The fact that Stubbs got out thrice, he got done, but still had the courage to tell each one of those bowlers, "Come and get past my defense." And we've seen you and Faf do that in the past. Try and give a very stubborn blade, asking us to go past it. Is that what character is defined by you, or what exactly do you mean by saying character?
I think the definition of character is something a bit different. It's obviously a inner fight. So the personality of the player needs to be in a certain zone to be prepared to go through tough times and come out of it, and also ride the wave of the good times, but to be stable as a personality and with your character. But when we're talking cricketing terms and defense against spin, it is the ability to adapt and to read situations and to do something about it then, and not to sort of be stagnant and go into your shell in a way. And I think that's what Stubbs did really well in the series. Is you always read the situation well. Maybe his defense is not the best, and I don't think there are a lot of players that I watched in this Test series that have got a perfect defensive technique. But the ones that were successful were the ones that were able to read different plays and understand how the bowler is trying to get them out. What is the mode of this missile they are trying to set me up for? And then to find a way to counter that, either by a solid defensive stroke or getting your pad outside the line, or doing the cross bat shots, which we saw a lot of Tristan Stubbs with that reverse sweep working really well, the flat bat sweep. And I mean, he sort of just made the bowler guess. If you give a world-class spinner like yourself or a Jadu Kuldeep Yadav, if you give them opportunity to bowl to a certain target and it's not a moving target at all, I think you will get yourself into trouble. And ways to counter that is not always by hitting boundaries. It is with a bigger stride, going very deep in your crease, then pulling out the reverse sweep, just making him think like, what is coming next, And even though you're playing Test cricket, I think that is really important still to do with a world-class bowler on a wicket that sort of suits the bowling or helps them. And I think that's where Stubbs played really well and did incredibly well. Just one more point. The commentators had a very interesting analysis of the different techniques in that last session, which I really enjoyed watching and showing how certain players actually use their crease, allowing the ball to travel that extra yard and other times coming out of the crease. So if you go and pull that up, it's really quite interesting.
Yeah, I saw where Dinesh was talking about how Jadeja was playing the same ball that Rishabh got on the front foot. He played it off the back foot, hence shortening the length. However, there is a lot that we can talk about the Indian batting at length. But before that, I want to shed some light on what exactly South Africa did well. We spoke about Tristan Stubbs. It's probably the person who occupied the crease the most. But what was amazing to watch was someone like Tony DeZorzi. Yes, Tristan Stubbs is also on his first subcontinental tour, but somebody like DeZorzi is very new to the subcontinental tours. But the way he handled with his game plans, especially when he started reversing Washington Sundar from outside the leg stump, the control with which he reverse swept. When he stepped out, he made sure he got to the pitch of the ball. The clarity in thought and the clarity of shot making and the options chosen. Are these things that have evolved over the years since the Proteas have traveled to India, or is that something that's been laid emphasis upon increasingly even inside domestic cricket in South Africa?
I think it's a combination of both. The players have really sort of got more exposure over the last while and got better in subcontinent conditions, and vice versa is also true. You saw Team India go to England not long ago and look completely at home with short ball stuff and moving deliveries off the seamers. So that is one element thereof. And the other one, I feel, is just really finding yourself in a group of players where there is a solid game plan and belief. And I think that's the case with DeZorzi. Is he looks around him and he goes, you know what, my role is incredibly clear because of good leadership. And also, I think there's been a lot of emphasis over the last 10 years for South African players to play spin better. And that has definitely changed, obviously also because of the T20s and the IPL formats like that, showing different kind of skill sets, and you get ideas and you see, you know what, a reverse sweep actually is not a lot of risk if you encounter it the right way. More often than not, your pad's outside the line. The only thing it comes down to is execution, and it becomes a really safe shot. And you've even seen players with a sweeper out on the offside still play it and take their one with it. So it's almost become a nice rotation of the strike option as well, which I never thought was possible. But so it's a combination of all those things. But I just really think Tony, for instance, finds himself in a group where he feels, you know what, I've got the backing here and I feel comfortable.
It's quite an interesting point that you hit on the head, because when we do travel abroad to England or Australia over the last few years, we've always felt that we've enjoyed batting in those conditions a lot more. And that reflects upon a lot when we play first-class cricket. Our pitches in first-class cricket don't spin much anymore. They're pretty flat, or they do seam around a bit. I'm sure people who are looking at first-class cricket in India would figure that out. So my question to you is, when you watch this particular Indian team bat, for instance, a few months ago, the New Zealanders came here, but they didn't defend. Their defense almost seemed like sweeping and reverse sweeping. They found it as a good defensive technique. So when a batting lineup comes with such an intent, and the opposition team, in this case, India, being more straight batted, not going for the horizontal shots, is that a big point of difference between two teams when it comes to a narrow series?
Maybe. I don't think you have to play the cross-bat shots. I don't think there's much wrong with the Indian batting lineup and the way they play spin, to be honest. It's more so just the situations they find themselves in, being under a bit of pressure and looking around and going, there's no Virat, there's no Rohit. Yes, Yashasvi has scored some runs. We've got KL Rahul here, but their records also don't show a huge past of scoring thousands of runs away from home and at home. So maybe it's just that sort of inner belief where there's a little bit of insecurity with some of the more inexperienced players. And we've seen where there's quite a heavy load thrown on players like Awashi and Jadu in the series. to have to come out and score runs. And I don't think they've often found themselves in that position. Maybe with yourself and Jadu back in the day, but even with you guys coming out there in the middle or towards the back end with the tail, you would always think with that top five, the bulk of the runs will be scored there. And I think that's sort of changed over the last couple of years, where the middle order feels, you know what, we might be under pressure here. And that's just the way Jaiswal plays. KL maybe is still your traditional kind of test player. You will sort of have a look at that new ball and sort of get the shine off of it. But I think it's more mental thing than anything else, Ash. I don't think it's technical. And I mean, the Indian players have always been the best players for spin. I don't think that all of a sudden now I have to just reverse sweep and sweep to show they are still the best. You don't have to change much. It's just more a belief and a bit of self-confidence. And I think it's a mental approach more than anything else.
Interesting take that from the mental side of things. You probably are right, but as someone who's played inside the dressing room and also watched it, I would love to see them defend a little bit more and with a lot more authority in defense, if I can say that, because defending positively is something that will go across to the opposition. Which brings me to the next person that's absolutely rocked the series, the player of the series, Simon Harmer. Simon Harmer was here in 2015, quit international cricket, went to Essex. I played a bit against him when I played for Nottinghamshire. He's done quite the yards. Looks someone who's really come through the ranks in terms of volumes of overs. I always believe spinners get better the more they bowl, unlike workload management for the quick men. A word on Simon Harmer. What did you think of him? How much has he improved? And he led that attack beautifully, didn't he?
Yeah, I'm a huge fan, and I've actually got a nice story about him. We didn't grow up together, but he was at the school across the road from me, Boys High, so we big rivals growing up. I've always known about him, and as he came through the ranks, we sort of became friends. And he just he couldn't break through. He went to county cricket, got hundreds and hundreds of wickets, year in and year out, one of the star performers over there. And we stayed in touch, and I could sort of sense his frustration, not getting an opportunity. And when he did get an opportunity, he got thrown into the deep end over there in India, didn't do incredibly well, and boom, he was out again. And I honestly really felt for this guy. I always knew he was a match winner. And coming against Pakistan now recently, and also against India in India, sort of a breakthrough couple of series for him, where he really showed what he's capable of. And sometimes that's all a player needs. It's a shame for him. It's only happened now in his career. I mean, he's not 25 anymore, but I think he's looked after his body pretty well, and he's got a few more years ahead of him. And the nice thing about him, he's a smart cricketer. He can also hold the bat and he can chip in, and he's definitely a player with character. So I'm incredibly proud of him. Man of the series performance. It couldn't have been scripted better for him. And I switched my television screen off the day before the last day of that second test match that night. And I was thinking, you know what? Harmy is going to be a handful tomorrow on that wicket, especially in that morning session, as there was a bit more pace on it in the mornings. It got slow in the afternoons, but Harmy, I thought, was going to get a lot of breakthroughs, which he ended up doing. And congratulations to him.
Not so easy being on the other side of what Simon Harmer did today. Probably the standout spinner in this entire series, both data-wise and even the point of how much speed he was able to change. His bandwidth of speed change was nearly 15 to 17 kilometers. And there was a constant talk about that. But when you're a top-flight, top-quality spinner, that's the basic requisite that's needed of a spinner. And that was a huge margin. He was defeating every other spinner in this particular series. But being Keshav Maharaj now couldn't be very easy. Being the lead spinner for South Africa, couldn't really get the same bite that Simon Harmer managed to get. Does this mean that Simon Harmer gets to be the first spinner now for South Africa? Has he leapfrogged Keshav, or what are your thoughts on that?
That's a tough question. I don't think so yet. I think he's got more to prove, and he needs to bowl on flat wickets as well. Needs to play home series at Supersport Park and in Joburg, where you really have to sort of grind your way, be economical for a period of time, and that way get your wickets, or just play that role for the team. I think that's where Kesh is still above Harmy. Obviously, he's got the experience as well. Keshav is a great competitor, and I think there's room for both of them in that team. I think if we look at the way you and Jadu have been selected over the years, I think there was a period of 5 years where you hardly missed a test match, no matter where you played. Maybe Australia was a bit different, but still there was room for both of you, because both of you could hold the bat as well and add value in the field. And that is the case with both of them. Both of them can be seen as semi all-rounders. So I don't see a reason for any of them to be dropped in the near future. But I do feel with the experience and the fact that Kesh is adaptable to all conditions, and it doesn't mean Harmy is not. He just hasn't proven it yet. I think Kesh is still the first pick for now.
There's always value from someone who's seeing the game from the outside. We'll obviously be very emotional about what's happened in India at this point of time. I'm actually personally quite hurt, and I do believe, it is the case. And there is a point of hurt when I see the lack of fight. I don't mind the games being lost, but just the fact that we couldn't fight really irks me a little bit. But from outside, where do you see this Indian team going, and what would be that one piece of advice you would give the batters and the bowlers, and where next for us?
Yeah, I know it's painful now, but when I look at the setup of Indian cricket in all formats, I don't think there's much to worry about. If anything, you hit the nail on the head with that one point of just having to find that fight and the purpose of why we're playing for this team. They might have to just revisit that, find their identity a little bit, because there's been a lot of changes of late. And it's very natural to go through phases like that, but it generally takes a good leader or two, maybe even three in the team, to pull things together and say, you know what, this is our purpose, these are your roles, and this is what we're playing for. And I expect to see that kind of fight on the field, and for all of us to move in that direction. So let's see where they go with that. I don't think there's any need for panic. Lots of talent, plenty of options and different combinations they can use moving forward. It will be refreshing for them to go into the ODI and T20 series now, as I think things will be a lot harder for South Africa there. But no need to panic yet. Obviously, this will hurt for a while, and so it should. But it doesn't mean it's the end of the road. There's plenty of talent in Indian cricket.
I'll let you take over the white ball leg of this game that's coming up, but I'm going to ask you one final question, quite a hard one maybe, and I want to put you on the spot. I always believed Shukri Conrad had something to offer. He's gone quite popular in India at this point of time with the growl statement that Tony Greig had given a long time ago against the West Indian team that visited England. He's obviously reached every household with that particular statement. But is there a contrasting approach that you can find? Because South Africa wasn't in a very different situation to what India is in right at this point of time. Themba Bavuma, a lot of inexperience. Marco Janssen was drafted in. Nandre Berger was drafted in. A lot of inexperience in that squad. But Shukri Conrad and Themba Bavuma have stood really tall. And is there a contrasting approach between two teams in terms of leadership and management that's really quite made the difference in opposite polarizing directions?
Yeah, that is tough, because I've never played under Shukri, and I haven't been in the Indian dressing room with a Gigi there and Morne Morkel, Ryan Tendushkata. It all looks great on paper, but I don't know what the dynamic is like behind the scenes. So it's a difficult question. What I can say, it is different for every player. I absolutely love playing under Gary Kirsten. Now, he is a former player, similar to Gautam Gambhir, where some of the players in the change room might find some confidence and feel comfortable with a former player being there, a great of the game, and sort of find extra inspiration to put extra yards on the field for the team and for your coach. And then there's Shukri Conrad, who's got this long track record of domestic teams that he's coached. He's got a lot of experience, and he's a very calm character. He generally makes his decisions on statistics and also combines it with gut feel. He doesn't just thumb suck some of the team selections he's made, and he really works with those players to help them come through and sort of make breakthroughs. But you can also only do that with a strong group of senior players in your team, and with Kagiso Rabada there, Themba Bavuma, Aiden Markram, to name but a few. It sort of really helped Shukri to communicate with them. So I think that core group of senior players, along with the coach, is what's really helped South Africa a lot. To speak on behalf of the Indian side, it's really difficult. I don't know what Gigi is like when it comes to leadership. I've known him as an emotional player, and if that is the case in the change room, generally an emotional coach is not a good thing to have. But it's not to say he's that kind of coach and that kind of leader behind the scenes. So it's tough. And I come back to your question. There's no right and wrong. Some players will feel comfortable with a former player. Some players will feel more comfortable with a coach that's never played the game before, but he's got a lot of years of experience of coaching the game. A really difficult way of communicating from these two coaches to the players. I just don't know what the right and wrong is there.
Right and wrong. Actually, you're right. Right and wrong is very subjective. But you played some cricket with Temba Bavuma, and he's gone on to become a captain that could be could be a point of envy for a lot of other skippers. Is yet to lose a lot of games. In fact, I don't think he's lost a test match as a captain. And did you expect this out of him, or has he come out of the syllabus and really surprised all of you?
Yeah, they lost that one in Pakistan, which I think they should never have lost. But he didn't play that test match, so he got off. No, I mean he surprised all of us. I've been in connection with my friends for years. For the first few years that he was named captain, and I even was hesitant to say, you know what, I'm very confident about the call. And maybe it comes back to that old phrase: if you can't judge a book by its cover. He doesn't look like this big Graham Smith with the whole aura, walking and a presence where he can be intimidating. Temba is very, very small. He's a soft-spoken guy. He hardly ever raises his voice. And it just shows you that different styles of captaincy can be successful. And I think it's similar for MS Dhoni maybe back in the day. Also, I hardly ever heard his voice. He was quite calm, didn't speak much. But when he did speak, I think people listened to him. And I think that might be a similar case with Temba. He sort of forces his respect onto the players by being a calm demeanor out there. And I mean, it's absolutely incredible. He's taken me aback by the success he's achieved. And you know what? I had an interview with him the other day, and he said early on in his career, he realized that he's not going to be a legend with a bat in hand. He can play, and it doesn't mean he's going to step back to any bowler. But he looked at 10,000 plus runs, and he told himself, you know what, Thames, I'm not going to get there. But let's find other ways to sort of add value to the setup and to the team. And he said before he knew it, he had this leadership role come his way, and he thought, there's my opportunity to really have an impact on South African cricket. And I mean, if you have that kind of mindset and that will to go and find work and find areas where you can add value, you got to take your hat to something like that.
Interesting people come from interesting places, AB. They do interesting jobs and end up becoming legends and champions. And Temba is probably on the way to becoming one. In fact, the way he handled Keshav Maharaj in the last test where he was struggling to get a wicket, to bring him back against a left-hander, saying, you are my senior statesman, and gave him a go, went for 3 sixes, got his wicket, closed the game out, gave it to Keshav Maharaj saying, you're my champion, you're going to get those wickets. Suggested a lot about a leader. Anyway, it's time to move on to the next segment, AB. I'm going to throw the ball to you. The white ball leg. Do you want to take it away? The test matches given a lot of success to South Africa. T20 World Cup coming up. There's some ODIs and T20s coming up. Where does South Africa go on from here?